firmly held belief that vaccinations will injure their child, you will see that this legislation is a dangerous overreach by our government.
And I'm not going to put up with it. And this granny is going to speak her mind as much as she can.
The knowledge of the ancients, tried and true, trusted herbs and extracts fused with the latest nutraceutical science. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend, crafted with over 14 key ancient herbs and extracts to supercharge and prepare your body for what experts admit is the most dangerous season of the year. We have rejected hundreds of other formulations in our quest to bring you what is simply the most powerful and comprehensive proprietary formula that we have ever created in the realm of herbal immunity. For the last 2 years, our team has been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to develop the ultimate nutraceutical formulation. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. For a limited time, get 25% off on this introductory offer. Visit ancientdefense.com or call 888-253-3139. ancientdefense.com. Used since before the days of the Roman Empire to support the body's natural systems and enhance overall health. Introducing the new INFOWARSLife.com oil of oregano formulation, a highly advanced nutraceutical form of this key herb that has been traditionally used by civilizations for thousands of years to promote health. We have now procured the most high quality and potent forms of oregano oil on the market, sourced from top leading manufacturers to ensure a concentrated level of bioactive ingredients, extracted directly from the wild herb and sealed in easy-to-use capsules. You will no longer need to endure the burning of liquid oregano on the tongue. Wild crafted from the Mediterranean oregano species that experts agree is one of the most powerful and most challenging to acquire. This winter season, it's more important than ever to secure this true form of oil of oregano. Now available in our limited first run at INFOWARSLife.com. That's INFOWARSLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Now, joining me in studio is David Knight, and I wanted to bring David in to just kind of have a casual conversation about some of the things that I'm finding really disturbing on the internet. I find the greatest stories on Twitter. Well, the Drug Enforcement Agency has now come up with the most insane argument against legalizing medicinal marijuana. They are now saying that if Utah decides to legalize marijuana, rabbits will get stoned. And this is a big problem. So Utah
I think we got a new metaphor.
Yeah.
Instead of jumping the shark, we need to talk now in the future about stoning the bunnies.
Yes.
Because this is so over the top absurd and trying to push this. This is beyond anything we saw on Happy Days. I mean, this is to say that we have to not legalize it because the bunnies are going to get stoned because we're going to have a large number of fields that are there. Maybe they should talk to the U.S. military and ask them what's going on in Afghanistan with all the poppy fields that they're helping the people grow there because they got a bumper crop.
Since when are they concerned about cuddly little baby bunnies? Now, the DEA is freaking out about this bill that Utah, it's really referring to the edible form of marijuana, and this is what people want to use to help them medicinally. But they're so against this. And this is something that this is their argument, that they went out to these fields where the bunny rabbits were, and they noticed that they were just sitting there. They were just really cool with the fact that humans were approaching them. And so then they said that they stole the marijuana crop away. They tried to take all the marijuana away from the rabbit, and they were just stunned because the rabbit just sat there. And this is what their big concern is that wildlife might start to cultivate a taste for the herb, and then they'll lose their natural inhibitions and they won't be afraid of humans anymore.
I guess this explains why Jeb Bush opposed medical marijuana in Florida. You know, he and Sheldon Adelson, the big casino owner in Nevada. But, you know, Rand Paul called out Jeb Bush on his hypocrisy at CPAC, saying, how dare you withhold something that is very effective, the most effective, the safest medication that people can have for certain illnesses, withhold that from them. At the same time, you admit that you did it recreationally when you were at this posh school that you were going to. Nothing happened to Jeb Bush. And you know what? Nothing happened to Jeb Bush's daughter when she was caught with her prescription drug problem. The only person that got in any trouble was a reporter who pointed it out. The fact that they gave, I think it was, I can't remember what the amount was, but it was a large amount of money that they gave to the judge who was, to his charity, the judge that was presiding over her case. So there's a lot of corruption. Jeb Bush is Exhibit A, but you know, it just, they're coming up with all kinds of absurd things to argue against the use of marijuana now because they understand they're losing it.
Right.
People are seeing through the hypocrisy. They're seeing through the mean-spiritedness of it, withholding something that is very effective for medication, even extending it to things that don't have hallucinogens in them, like hemp, that are competitors to the paper industry, to the textiles industry, understanding that we have totally been sold a bill of goods for the last half century.
Right, and people are seeing through the elitist hypocrisy of it. You can buy your way out of going to prison if you've got enough money, and it does have a lot of medicinal use as well as a lot of other things that you mentioned. And they really are coming out on the defensive now, desperate to roll this back, desperate to convince people that this is a dangerous thing, even going so far as to say, you know, cuddly little baby bunnies are now going to be our friends, and as if that's a problem. And we saw on Fox News, they actually rolled out one of their medical experts to talk about a new study. A new study showed that marijuana was the least harmful of all of the common drugs, and he had a big problem with this. And listen to his very scientific explanation.
Pot may be safer for you than you think, according to a brand new study.
They're using a lethal dose as a comparison. For example, they're putting pot or weed against cocaine or alcohol and smoking. So we know that you need less amount of alcohol to die. So they're using death as a measure to see what's dangerous and what's not in this particular
study.
Okay, so
how is it dangerous? Forgetting death.
Now we have crack babies coming in because pregnant women are smoking this whole marijuana business.
So that was Fox News' medical expert.
Yeah, medical expert. Okay. He knows about as much as their intelligence expert knows about the NSA and the effects of that stuff. That's amazing. Yeah, they're trying to create a new reefer madness, aren't they?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
they're desperate to get this back. You've got Oklahoma and Nebraska appealing to the Supreme Court saying the federal government, the Supreme Court, needs to shut down these bills, you know, these laws that have been passed by referenda. I talked to Jim Garrock. He's going to be our guest later in the program because, of course, he's a former prosecutor in Chicago. I want to talk to him about the black site there. And, of course, the black site has roots in the corruption that comes from the war on drugs. But one of the things that I had, Leanne, that was an epiphany was the fact that this is something that has really been driven by the UN. You remember last fall when these initiatives were winning everywhere, everybody was outraged that the UN said, federal government needs to shut this down at the state levels. We can't have this. It's like, who are you to talk to us about this? You don't have a dog in this fight. This is none of your business. Well, it actually began with the UN. It's like UN Agenda 21. They created this agenda. He's going to Jim Garrock from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition is going to this convention. They have an annual meeting since 1946. This is going to be in Vienna. They've been talking about narcotics. And in 1961, they created a convention, a treaty, that all the nations signed on to that essentially was the same template that we adopted here 9-10 years later when the war on drugs was officially declared by Richard Nixon with the drug scheduling, saying Schedule I drugs like marijuana, they're going to be prohibited and that sort of thing. I never really paid attention to the war on drugs until the mid-'80s when Reagan came after the end users instead of going after the suppliers. And when he started destroying the rule of law with civil asset forfeiture, creating the mandatory minimums and everything, that was a total outrage, total destruction of our legal system. But I never realized before I started looking at this and what Jim Garrock is doing, because he's going to go to the top level. I think we need to fight it at the state level.
Right.
Absolutely. But I think it's a good thing to go to the top level and say, this isn't working. You guys know it's not working.
Right. Well, that's how they work, too. They put us in a vice. So we need to start doing that to them as well, pushing against the top and the bottom. And, of course, that's what this is all about. The DEA is worried about that constant revenue stream that comes, you know, from entrapment and arrests. Of course, just propping
all these
up
governments say,
constant...
we have to do this because it's part of the UN treaty and everything. They love it. It's a very effective piece of control for them to come in, as we see here in America, but it happens in all the different countries. But I never really realized that it was an agenda, just like their climate agenda, that's coming from the UN, IPCC, just like gun control, the police. I mean, over and over and over again, there's these agendas that are created by the UN, and then they leave it to the local, because they don't have any way to enforce this stuff. They don't have any UN police yet, okay? Once they get their global tax, that's probably one of the first things that they'll fund.
Yeah. Well, at least what the good thing with this is that people are finally starting to see through this false war on drugs.
They've stoned the bunny. They have stoned the bunny now, and it's jumped the shark.
Well, thanks for joining me, and we will definitely have you back in studio to break down some of the more bizarre stories out there in the internet land. But stick around, because coming right up, David Knight will be in studio with Jim Garrick.
Another major health threat, this one in Toledo, Ohio, where everybody in the entire city has been told not to drink the water.
Ohio's governor declaring a state of emergency.
Did you know that the average person uses about 80 to 100 gallons of water at home every single day? If there's a water emergency, will you be prepared?
Panicked residents forming long lines throughout the day.
We're here at a supermarket in Toledo. You can see the shelves empty where water once was.
To stay safe and healthy during a crisis, you must have access to safe, clean water. Water which will not be available at your local grocery store.
There's a mad dash on right now to stock up on supplies.
The ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system is a must-have for every modern, independently minded household. Protect your family's safety during an emergency. Go to InfoWarsStore.com today to purchase your ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system, or call 1-888-253-3139.
Introducing Secret 12, the new InfoWars Life vitamin B12 formulation. Most forms of vitamin B12 are highly processed and synthetic and could not be properly absorbed by the body. That's why for real results, so many are having to turn to painful B12 injections, which are known to have higher absorption rates. Now, InfoWarsLife.com is excited to announce that we can bring you our most bioactive, powerful form of B12 that has been developed with our exclusive perfected process. Secret 12 is a binary of nutramedical grade, bioavailable coenzyme forms of B12, methylcobalamin, the same kind used in B12 injections, and adenosylcobalamin. Secret 12 is simply taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. Discover the secret. Secret 12. Secure your revolutionary Secret 12 formula right now at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Joining us tonight is Jim Garrick. Now, Jim was a former prosecutor in Chicago. I wanted to talk to him about what we learned in Homan Square. Of course, it has roots in the war on drugs. And for the last 20 years, Jim Garrick has been fighting drug prohibition. He's part of a group, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Actually, he is the executive board vice chairman. And before we go to Jim, I want to read you a quote from him. He says, ironically, the war on drugs was put in place to save our kids from drugs and to make our streets safer. But ending prohibition is what will truly accomplish these goals. Joining us now is Jim Garrick. Thank you for joining us, Jim.
David, my pleasure to be with you.
Now, I wanted to talk to you especially today because there's a UN event coming up next week. I think a lot of people don't realize the historical involvement of the United Nations in the war on drugs. You're going to be going there to try to change the course of the approach that is being, I guess, an agenda that's being forced on us from the top down, but also because of what we saw this last week with the Guardian story talking about Homan Square, the site where it was alleged that people were held for very long periods of time without being booked, some cases of torture. And at first when I looked at this, Jim, I thought, is this the NDAA being put into practice? But then as we looked at how the Guardian found this site, what they had was a Chicago detective, Richard Zuley, who was involved in some of the more egregious torture incidents at Gitmo. And tracking that back, they found that he had a pretty bad record in Chicago, and that led them to this site. So it kind of looks to me like this is something that actually began with the war on drugs, like so many kinds of corruption that we've seen in this country.
Well, David, let me say